This video I'm going to show you what I think is one of the hardest but really beneficial balance exercises out there. So I'm going to start on one leg, but before I do, I want to get organized. So I get my feet close, knees out just a bit. That helps to get my knee in the center of the foot. I want to try and keep it there throughout this exercise. And then I'm going to just pick up a knee and balance. I'm going to take my outside hand, so I'm balancing on my left, my right hand, and I'm going to try and reach it about 6 inches outside my left foot. Push into the ground with your left foot to come up. Turn your belt buckle and chest a bit off now to my right. So I'm getting a turn, right hand, I'm on my left leg, right hand is going to reach about 6 inches outside my left foot, pushing in through the left foot to come up. If I had a big cowboy belt buckle, sternum, shoulders, all rotates a bit, maybe 45 degrees off to the left, while I'm trying to keep my knees straight. Doing one more, reaching down, coming up. If you can't get all the way to the floor, totally fine. I want you to go maybe about halfway, but imagine that you're reaching outside of the foot that's on the ground. So breaking that down a little bit, a couple cues I mentioned. One is we're going to turn and reach. So I'm doing this not just from my lower back, but my whole hip and pelvis are moving. So these are my bony hip, kind of front of the hip bones, they're a little pointy. So as I go down, my outside one is going to turn to the left. If this stays straight on, that's just my low back moving. So this bony part of the hip, as I reach, it should turn a bit and now almost point to where I'm reaching. So that's number one, is we want to turn from the hips. Number two is to come up, the cue I gave was push the foot into the ground. So when I'm in this down position, it's kind of two ways to come up. I can push into the ground with the leg muscles, or I can pull up with my low back and maybe my hip flexor. And so I want to do the latter, push into the ground and feel the leg muscles pulling or pushing us upward rather than kind of pulling up with the lower back. And to couple that, try and take some nice deep breaths as you do this, so that way you're not super tense even though you're working. So that's number two. So number one is hip bone should turn. Number two is push up with the foot. Number three is actually the same as number one. The hip bone turns. So as you come up, we're trying to turn the other way. So I said belt buckle, bones of the hip, chest, sternum, chin, all turns a bit, about 45 degrees. And same thing as the first cue, the bony part of the right hip is now pointing about 45 degrees this way. If it still points forward, that's just my low back moving, or just my head and neck moving. So we're getting the hips moving inward, and then we're getting them moving outward. So that gets some really nice hip rotation. And then throughout, just trying to minimize any wobbles. I would rather have you use a little support. So I got a wall here. This could be a countertop, or actually show I got a chair here. So I'd rather have you occasionally put fingers on a chair or a wall. So I'm going to come down so I can touch this and then come up and go there. I can release to turn. I also have it a little out in front to better facilitate this turn. I'd rather have that in some margin of stability with knee in the center, your back's not all over the place, you're not super wobbly, because we're working balance, but I find if it's too wobbly, we might not actually get benefit or the muscles that help us stabilize. So often on a balance exercise, I choose a challenging one, but then give a little support, and then we can use the support less and less as we make progress. I find that's a better way to make progress than just hanging on for dear life and not using any support no matter what. Of course, when I take this away, not a problem to touch your opposite toe down occasionally to help stabilize, and that can be a nice progression away from a chair or a countertop or a wall. So I can use that toe a bit. If you feel like that's too far of a reach or something's going on with your low back, either don't reach from the ground, we're going to use this chair again. I'm going to set that up about maybe a foot, foot and a half, and I'm just going to reach for the chair and then turn there. So I don't have to reach towards the ground. And then finally, we can do this on a balance pad. I'm gonna change sides, my left got tired. So I'm gonna first balance, knee out a bit. I'm gonna work, reach, I'm gonna try to reach maybe the edge of this balance pad. And then come up, turn it through the hips. It's kind of like you're reaching to the ground and then maybe like saying hello to somebody in a weird way. So this can be a really challenging exercise because it changes our head position. So that challenges this, it's called the vestibular system. The balance pad, or even without the balance pad, challenges our foot and ankle stabilizers. And then we're getting the hips moving in and out of both flexion, extension, and rotation, which challenges a lot of muscles through the hip joint. Final thing on the foot is I want to try and keep the toes pressing down into the floor rather than curling up. When they curl up, now my ball of the foot's not on the ground, and that immediately makes us way more wobbly. So especially if you're on the balance pad, but even if you're not, feel like you're pressing the toes a bit into the ground as you reach. Okay, so you should finish this feeling a lot of work in the hip, ankle, lower leg, foot. Where I don't want to feel it is I don't want you to finish and be like, man, that was a great low back exercise, or a great shoulder exercise, or a great knee exercise. That might mean either you're tensing in the low back or upper body, or you're just trying to do this all with your knee. So that's a really challenging one. Give it a shot. If you can get some of these rotational movements down, whole lot of benefit to